Get everything situated here. All right, awesome. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Continuity Through Creation, a Living Culture Through the Art of the Zuni People. Um, we've got a movie to show you today. We're really excited about it. We have some of the creators here for questions afterwards, but I'm going to get things started. I'm going to introduce the movie, but first we got a couple of things that Crow Canyon would like to say. So the Crow Canyon Archaeological Center acknowledges the Pueblo, Ute, Paiute, Diné, and Jicarilla Apache, people on whose traditional homelands our campus sits. We acknowledge the first people of this land, the human people, the animal people, plant people, water people, rock people. We ask permission of the first people to enter this space and make a promise that our words, deeds, thoughts, and actions will be honorable to them. Our work is not possible without Indigenous people in the past, present, and future. And we respectfully recognize and honor ancestral and descendant Indigenous communities for their contributions to all humankind. Crow Canyon is grateful to all Indigenous people and supports the preservation and protection of cultural traditions, ancestral connections, and sacred lands. I think we're all old hats at Zoom at this point, but we just want to make sure that you put your Q&As, your questions, into the Q&A little tab there. Please don't put them in the chat. We will not see them there. We will handle them within the Q&A section there. If you are having difficulties with Zoom, you could head over to Facebook, and we are streaming live over there. And you can always see some of our webinars on YouTube the following day or so. So we do not, this is very important, we do not have a webinar on November 28th. Our next webinar is by Dr. Todd Sorovel, and he's presenting on when did people first arrive in the Americas? Evidence from the stratigraphic integrity of archaeological sites. So that will be on December 5th. And then that will be our last webinar for the year. So again, no webinar on November 28th, next week. And then our last one will be on December 5th. We are super excited to tell you that we have our all new cultural explorations trips that are available to folks, and they can register for them. These awesome experiences that we take people on. You can go to crowcanyon.org, you go to the programs tab, and you can see cultural explorations and learn more about these trips. Here are some. One that I'm very invested in is the Birding in Pueblo Worlds trip. I'll be on that one. With Dan is here today with Dan too as well, and I'm super excited about it. We have other ones here, Bears Ears, Glen Canyon. So we're just thrilled about these. Go over and check them out. We also just want to say that our webinar series is made possible by donors like you. And so if you would like to support us in these kinds of endeavors or in other endeavors or want to learn about those other endeavors, you can scan the QR code or you can go over to crowcanyon.org and learn more about what we do and maybe even donate. I'll keep it here for just a beat. If anyone wants to whip out their phone and scan that QR code, and then we will move on. Okay. All right, so I'm going to introduce the film that we're going to watch today. Really excited about it. So, produced in collaboration with Indigenous partners, this original film will be an intimate journey through the hands and hearts of 5 Zuni artists through weaving, pottery, jewelry making, fetish carving, and beading. Viewers will be invited to learn more about the technicality of the crafts themselves, as well as the deep history and continuation of culture each art form holds. The artists will discuss their own personal histories as well as what inspires them to continue the tradition to create. So parts of the film are interview style, while other segments of the film are a deep visual journey with art created in front of the lens. So I will stop sharing now and we can turn it over to the film.
Sweetheart. There's no sound.
I'm going to stop and get the audio.
Yeah, see, it's there.
Leave the door open.
Deshi ko tonte wan nan ate aye. Ho Christopher Lewis le shina. Ho tona shi ko te an to wal pa wan chale.
My name is Dan Simplicio.
Keshi ho ma ho e ho Carlos le shina ho. Te wa she.
My name is Fabian Fontanel.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Eldrick Seotua. I consider myself a fiber artist. I work with natural fibers, cotton twines, grasses, feathers, and different plant materials nature has to offer. I use willow collected around Zuni. Depending on the area, will denote the color of the willow I use. The darker reds, like these on the end, are what we call male willow. The lighter colored ones, which can get into the yellows, from light browns, oranges to yellows, we consider female willow. Some of my baskets I incorporate using both blending of the willows, the males and the females. This particular style of finish to a basket, the scalloping, back weaving, braiding are all typical of what I would call a post-contact style of finish to the basket. This one on the end, the cooking basket, is what I would call a pre-contact style, meaning this is the style of finishing with the yucca binding that was done before European contact. I make my willow baskets in winter time when there's no leaves, no buds to cut into the willow and damage it. That's also the time when it's really flexible and easy to bend. I work with prehistoric artifacts, studying them, looking at the technologies used to create works of art and being inspired by them. Getting the chance to study prehistoric baskets in collections, I look at how a basket maker made the basket, what technology they used to figure out how to make the baskets they did. We look at baskets, but with the baskets we also see the tools that they used in making their baskets. I use deer bones to make my awls. I have a couple of really nice awls that I absolutely, well, you can tell that I love to use. They're precious to me. You can tell by the coloring, the patina on it, from all the use. I go back to working with the materials that our ancestors used and found that they work better. My kids they tease me and say, "Dad, you just still working like the Flintstones, still playing with your bones and stones." Besides the basketry and feather work, I also do textile work. My belts here, most of them are acrylic. I do some in hand spun wool. I make different articles of traditional clothing. I do a lot of contemporary design belts. That particular one, that belt I call a prayer for rain. It's got prayer feathers and the dragonflies. Most of the time it's for dances or other things. They'll wear the belts, part of the traditional clothing. It's also part of our burial attire. As I'm weaving, once I start a belt, I do not know what the design is going to be. I let the belt dictate to me how the design will come out. A lot of times when a specific style, color, pattern is asked for, and I start and it doesn't want to work, I give up on it and let the belt tell me what it wants to be. I never fight the belt on a design. The same with these patterns. A lot of my patterns are in my head. Once I start weaving, they just pop out and form themselves.
Do my own stonework. It's all natural, and also the shell work is all natural. Nothing on my art is man-made. I'm a Native American Papaloan from Zuni here, and I'm also a traditional culturalist in my tribe. I've been doing jewelry ever since I was at the age of 10 years in my Angus, where I remember, and that came from my late mother, Amy Siatua, that was a jeweler. She also was an inlay jewelry maker and also a traditional jewelry maker. One point at time, she was doing inlay, so she was grinding down the inlay work, and then at that time she used a flat emery paper to sand down the jewelry. So she let me sand down the jewelry, which she grinded down. So that's when my interest came in. Every time she went to sell in Gallup, she would take off from her table, and then as a kid I would mosey around the table and try to use all the silver that's left behind on the table, which a couple times I had to burn myself. And then my wife, Charlotte, was doing the same thing. That's what I'm explaining to you now. She started at a young age. So we both mainly do a lot of jewelry making. She does her own designing. I do my own designing. This is my work table. Like I said before, everything's kind of messy. Everything is just not organized, but we're, I guess, more like used to where everything's at. We'll pick it up as we go along. I do a lot of art shows throughout the Southwest, and I don't mind, working so many hours. That's just how I, grew up with. The indent hallmark on my piece is right there with the S and the E on the top of the S and the C from my wife's initials in Zuni and Sterling that we stamp, so that people, my customers, would have a better idea of who the actual artist is when I'm out selling. These earrings is what I call the traditional petty point. The stones are Sonoran turquoise that we use, and this type of work is kind of time-consuming work with the traditional stuff. The more contemporary style of the work that you see over here is the contemporary style is more easier and more faster for us to incorporate. So, but anyhow, we both, try to work with what people like in our art. So that's pretty much of who we are.
Hello, my name's Carlos Laati. I do traditional Zuni pottery. There's a abundance of clay around the Zuni reservation. This clay right here is from the south end of the village on top of a mesa. Once I finish my praying to Mother Earth, asking for a little bit of her skin, I'll just go and maybe just use a screwdriver just to take out a small part of a clay, and it's almost like a puzzle. This right up here is wild spinach that's been boiled down to a tar state. So when I mix my paint, I just go ahead and pour it in a jar and re-soak it, and then mix it back up. We use old pottery shards and grind it down to almost like a sandy part, and this is what holds the clay together. I do a lot of hiking. I kind of check around. If I see a pottery shard that has designs on it, I just kind of turn it over and see what kind of designs I see. I kind of imagine a full piece of design that kind of has it on there, and this way I kind of come home and just make a sketch out of that design. The way my grandmother was explaining to me of the designs are, and mostly what she was saying, that they're the prayers that's on the pot, and we usually pray for water, rain, snow, sleet. On this pot right here, this is a deer in the house design. This house represents the forest for the deer. That's where he lives, that's where he roams. And the arrow represents breath of life for the deer. It's alive, it's part of Mother Earth. And the deer gives us food, protein and all that. And this right here is vegetation, what we plant. It's like a squash blossom, and it has a lifeline that's never closed. It's always open. It's like the spirit that goes in and that goes out. Up on top of the rim, it's got rainbirds. This is what we call rainbirds. There's so many rainbird designs that we use. The lines represent water. The red lines represent snow. The owl is a good luck bird for Zunis. A long time ago, when the raids were coming in from different directions, the owl alerted the Zuni people that somebody was coming in for their food storages. And we call the owls good luck birds. When you're doing clay work and you're making a piece of pottery, you have to have a clear mind. That way the clay part will do its thing, helping you out, making a piece. The prayers work. We do traditional pottery. That's when the clay comes to us.
I would never call him a Zuni man or anything like that. I call him Ashui. which is what we are, actually. I make fetishes, but I truly only focus on birds. Birds as my medium subject. I also work on silver, following my dad's footsteps. He made his own triangle wire and his half round wire. He was just so incredibly talented of coming up with his own unique designs and stuff. I never really learned a lot of it from my dad and stuff, but we used to watch them every day, after I grew up to be an adult and stuff like that. Well, how he did it, I know everything that he did. And so I started actually, without him telling me how to do it, I actually inherited that skill. Some innate nature of us that we learn these types of skills and we can pass it on. And so the continuity still stays intact. And there was in the I think it was in the late 70s. I was out of high school, unemployed, and out of high school. I can do. I saw this family who were carvers, and they were carving birds. And I picked up a piece of wood and I carved one of them. And then I got some of there was a piece of charcoal, and I blackened it, and then I rubbed it in, and it became a dark bird. And I was like, wow. I just made my fetish, my very first fetish. It was out of wood and stuff like that. But actually, I think a lot of my skills in looking back was anthropologically set like that for me, because I was looking through an old report. It was Roberts, an old archaeologist. He had done an excavation around the Zuni Heavens area, and found these burials, and they all had seashell armbands on. They all had armbands, 3 of them had armbands, and it was a frog design. And I'm from the Frog Clan. And I was like, wow, I can probably carve that. And so I copied it, and it had a band that went all the way towards the tail, and then that was that prehistoric design. And so I took that, and I think you might see it in other reports. And I really respect that people back then were still creative in this way, but it's not as detailed, that's why petroglyphs are so hard to interpret sometimes. But to us, there are indications of why they were doing what they were doing and what types of designs they were doing. Continuity and revitalization of the practices that weren't there anymore. And so we keep it alive and can bring them back to life and allow that. That's why there's no need for preservation. And that's what we do. I think, if it was a fruit that needed to be preserved, yeah. But not us.
My name is Fabian Fontanel. I'm Zuni Omaha. I come from Zuni Pueblo, New Mexico, and I'm a bead worker, a northern traditional dancer, and just an all-around musician. Our grandfather, his name was Young Man. It's Tzanatana in Zuni. This was his home. And our grandmother and our great-grandmother, they married and started their family here. The topmost part of the village was 6 stories at one time, 6 stories high. When people come and ask us how long we've been here, I usually tease and joke around and say, we've been here about 15,000 to 17,000 BC, give or take. The beadwork that I do is a very old traditional style of beading known as lazy stitch, and it comes to us through many tribes, multiple tribes, with the southern plains people as well as with the northern plains people, and I think it kind of belongs to the tradition of quill working, like the quill working style. I use different types of tools, of course, pertaining to leather working and canvas, cutting canvas pieces, different animal types of leather, mainly deer, elk, buffalo. I've always just piled my beads onto one plate. and, sometimes it gets hard to poke the needle through because of the leather and the texture of the leather. Make sure it's nice and tight so it lays flat. Things are made pertaining to an individual, what he or she prefers. They're usually sets. There are a lot of native beadwork for an individual, for a person or a family. They carry their own designs. They carry their own colors, really traditional, really old style. So a lot of the things that I make, big projects like this, pertains mainly just for myself, my wife Shelley, and our children and our grandchildren. Other than that, I just do smaller stuff like this. There are families that their children are following in their footsteps alongside their grandfolks and their mom and dads, carrying their family tradition. And the traditions that we still carry on that were given to us through our elders, our grandfolks and our mom, and a handful of other people and relatives on the Omaha side as well. We've always been different here, our family, specifically our immediate family, because we were part Omaha. And that's why I bead and do the kind of work that I do. This belonged to our grandmother. This is her needle box. Kept her needles in there. Different size needles, again for different textures, different size beads, leather glovers. Well, this box is probably maybe 100 years old by now. Very, very precious to me. Well, we're growing up. We're always told to have respect for our elders. They always show respect. That's how I grew up. That's how we were raised. It's awesome when people tell you good work, especially when they're elders. We're all different in our own ways, but we never say to anybody that they're wrong for doing what you're doing, because that's theirs. What we do is ours. It was given to us by the Creator, Almighty Himself, with some tribes herself as well. In all my travels, my lifetime, and I learned this from my grandmother. She used to say that one thing about Indian people that separates us from everybody else is that when you go to a ceremony or to a doing, a gathering, everyone shows respect for one another. They never point a finger at one another and say that that's wrong where I come from. You're given a place to sit. You're given a place to look on. You're given a place of honor.
Our ancestors had, brilliant minds. Everything through prayer, through thanking our our ancestors for doing all that work, for teaching us, for allowing us to continue the work we do.
We have the ability to retain our language, retain our cultural practices, and because of that is that we are, very skilled in knowing how to develop that continuity and make sure it goes still forward. That's why I don't like to use the word preservation. It's not preservation. We're not to be preserved because our culture is alive, our skills are alive, and we need to show that kind of life to go forward.
All right. That was fantastic. If anyone has any questions right now is the time to put them in the Q&A. But for now, while we're kind of maybe waiting for some of that, do our guests want to introduce themselves? And we've got Dan, we've got Fabian, we've got Chris here. Do we want to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about what you think about the movie that we just saw, to kind of get things going?
Hi, my name is Dan Simplicio. I'm actually a junior because my father was the original Dan Simplicio and he was a senior. And that's how we actually knew it. But after a while, it just dropped the junior and I just started using his name. I probably wanted to actually emulate his art and his skills and what I was thinking about it. And so that's kind of how I did and it kind of identified myself as. But I've been doing this for a while. Like I said, I used to watch both my mom and my dad work, and there was really no need to really teach me how to do it because I learned by observation and just watching them. And so, and the different skills that they had or different techniques they had. And that's kind of what my father did. Actually, he was teaching them more techniques and how to make silversmith in a real work of art. And so that's how he did that. And so I just naturally over time, I start sampling some of the work he did and made it my own, and I could do things on my own, and that's where I am today.
Hey, Fabian, your mic is muted. An easy way, you can press the space bar and just hold it, and that'll temporarily unmute.
And
Okay.
I just asked you to unmute as well.
He's going to get someone. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, name is Christopher Lewis. I've been with this project from the very beginning when it was on paper, working through getting the artists and everything, and to finally see it finished and accomplished. It's really inspiring and awesome to see the work our um, that's coming out of our community and what people are doing. It's a very small percentage of Zuni artists, and I had a lot of people in mind, but I had to keep it down to a handful of artists, which was very difficult to do. Uh, and overall, it's a amazing piece of work, and um, thank you to our artists for doing it, to our videographers and everyone involved. It was a 2 or 3 year project from start to end, and I'm glad I got to be a part of every step of it. And
Fabian, I think we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
I'm Fabian Fontenelle, and it's an honor and pleasure to be part of something so awesome to show people, showcase the public, the world, who we are, where we come from, and again, who we are as artists and as individuals as well. And the things that we acquire are so meaningful, and they mean a lot to each and every artist. As Chris mentioned, my cousin Chris, and well, we're all related one way or another here in our village. Everyone's brother and sister and grandmother and grandfather, and so on, extended families. Everyone's just so multi-talented in one way or another, and so some of these crafts are very, very old style of artwork, and I feel so honored and privileged to be able to carry on the things that I have. And I always credit my grand folks, my mother, and my brothers, my older brothers and sisters, who I saw them dancing and taking partake in social dancing, what's nowadays known as the powwow world. And as I mentioned in the video, we were always different here, as we were part plains from the Omaha people, and so on. So we're Zuni and Omaha. And again, I want to thank everyone involved. I want to thank Chris for asking me if I would like to do this and be part of it, and then the Crow Canyon people and the video people and everyone involved. Just thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. So we have some questions flowing in right now, and one of the first questions, well, we have a lot of thanks that came in too. So everyone said it was beautiful, and this video is beautiful, and just wanted to thank you all. One of the first questions we have is, do you find it difficult to pass on your knowledge to the next generation? What kind of, are there any difficulties, or is it easy? I can just kind of throw it out and we can kind of, chew on that for a little bit if you'd like.
I can take part of that on from my perspective. With fiber arts and basketry, it's pretty difficult to get someone interested. They're more into how much an hour can I get, whereas I'm looking at how many hours in a piece, and I get very little. If it was a 9 to 5 job, you get a lot of you would make a lot of money. But if you're working on a basket, takes 2 months to make, and you're only getting $300. It's you're not in it to get rich, but the richness comes from the cultural use and the value to indigenous person who gets that piece to use. So finding apprentices or anyone wanting to learn is very difficult. For me, I tell people, if you really want to learn and your heart is in it, you will walk through my door and ask to learn how to make whatever you're wanting to learn. And I got about a handful of people who have actually walked into the house and have asked to be taught how to do kilts or baskets or other things. So it's getting a person to stick with it and make a living and income from it. It's hard, and 9-to-5 jobs, just trying to get the time to work on things. That's always the conflict with the work. But yeah, there are people interested, but they just need to make a commitment to learn and stick with it.
Right. We have, not to interrupt anyone else, but to throw this in, it's a very similar question that came in was, how often is it common to have like an apprentice or anything like that? And it kind of speaks to what you were just talking about, Chris. But yeah, if anyone else wants to chime in.
I would. I really enjoy talking to the people themselves and what they wanted to do and what did they want to learn. And there's so many things you can tell them and talk about, and especially with design. What would you like to do that's unique? And I watched a young person this not too long ago, and I was talking to him like that, and he came up with his own designs. I mean, he had a ring that he made. He carved it. He's a fetish carver, and he carved it, but he made a two-headed snake ring. The two snakes came and they were right set in the middle. I've never seen anybody do that. I've never seen anybody do that. And he actually did it. And now he's doing that on his own. And he's also improving the different styles, doing different characters that that he carves, and just really running away with these types of ideals. But that was the beginning. That was the beginning. And he certainly has a big future ahead of him. And so that's what I like to see. I like to see their talent and how they do it and how far they can take it. And it's always constantly changing. And so I'm glad that they're able to catch on to things like that and to express it in their own way and create their own abilities and to come out and apply it to the work they want to do. And that's true ownership of themselves. And so I like what they do.
Our youngest daughter, Shani, she lives in Wyoming with her children. She has three, two girls and a boy, a little boy. And she's carrying on in the tradition of beadworking like I do. And but when she but when she gets into trouble and it gets too complicated, she'll call or text and says, "Dad, I need help with this and so and so." And majority of the time it's with the moccasins for the little ones or for herself. So that's kind of a tough one when you do make beaded moccasins. And but if you have time and if you have the know-how, it's kind of, it becomes easy to you. You know the way to make them and you have the skill. But there's many awesome bead workers here in the Pueblo as well. There's many different styles of bead workers here in the village too, and I really envy the style of work that other men and women do as well here in the village. But there are bead workers, other different style of bead workers here as well, that do different style of beadwork than what I do.
Chris, one of the questions that I have, this is my ignorance, is are there, you talked about how difficult it is to overcome the kind of 9 to 5, especially with someone who's learning something new, right? Are there any programs that help supplement that kind of like learning, or like, I guess you could call it apprenticeship?
I'm not sure. Most of what I do is what mainly a lot of people in the village want to learn. So it's more, how would you say, more localized, I guess. Things that are need it here in the village or other Pueblo communities, if they know, they'll come and ask for it. But I know Oshawa College has done some classes like that, but I've never been asked to teach or do anything with the college. So I know there are some things out there, but I'm not sure about other, what all the opportunities are.
Okay. We have
I can talk about my son and
Sure.
how he paints. He paints and he does jewelry, he does pottery. He wants to try everything and anything he can. And when he does it, he actually puts a lot of what in his mind to come up with ideas. For instance, he did in respect for murdered and missing women, he actually drew a manta dress, just drew it all very detailed. And the background was even better too, because he used a datura plant as his background with white flowers on it. And so that was in the background. But he also put a little bluebird on there, just going around, but very detailed, oriented in everything he did. But the whole point about that manta dress was there's no body in there. There's no body there. And it's a lot of our burial understanding of that. And so he just drew that. And it was quite unique. And he donated that painting, the original painting, to the Secretary of Interior. And so it's in Washington now. And so this is a way that he understands expanding his talent and getting into areas that we haven't really thought about. And so I like it that people can do that and just get beyond so many obstacles or anything that could hinder their talent. And there isn't. He's beginning to learn that is quite a path that he has now mastered. And he teaches younger students how to paint, how to do all the other different types of mediums as well. And so I like what he's doing, but I know that it's a lot of his own thoughts and his own understanding of the world itself, and he's applying all that.
Fabian, anything here you'd like to comment on? I just want to make sure before we move to another question, you get some time.
I think you can move on to another question.
Okay. We had a question come in talking about, kind of the creative process here, maybe with you all or different people or people you've known about, do people like to create in a group, or do you find that artists really want to be secluded? And we know we have this kind of vision in our heads sometimes of these people working by themselves and then, ta-da. What is your kind of process like?
I myself, I kind of like to work by myself, because like you mentioned, it's more like where your artist creativity comes from, is from within you, your surroundings, your upbringing, the things you've been taught, and so on. And I kind of notice. Well, it's a known fact that a lot of Indian people, the plains people, northern, southern plains people, and other tribes that do predominantly beadwork, they're really jealous in protecting their designs and their beadwork, because to them, to us, that your designs, your family designs, your tribal designs are kind of like a coat of arms. They signify where you come from and who you are. And there's all kinds of other elements that are involved in it, like, again, the designs, the colors you choose, and so on. And some designs, beadwork tells stories, or they carry their family designs. again, and so on. So I have a tendency I like to work by myself and so on. But I don't mind if my children are watching or my wife is watching, but if it's other people or whatever, I never work out in the open, or I never exhibition the style of beading that I do or anything. It's mostly and mainly done at home in the privacy of our home.
It's really fascinating. One of the things that I was kind of writing down, when we were talking about teaching and kind of linking this all together here, and how it can be difficult to get the next generation involved. And one of the things that Dan was talking about was, this the ability to come up with new things and be creative. And I was thinking about what like limits as well, right? Kind of like what you were talking about, Fabian, with there are certain rules here, right? And there's some certain reasons that I might not, there's a way we can do things. And I wonder if that ever discourages. So it's just that balance is just interesting. There's not really a question here. I just found what you said really, really fascinating and interesting. Anyone else want to talk about, out in the open or collaborating?
Yeah. It depends on the media, the work that's being done. 16, 17 years ago, I started the Zuni Pueblo Basket Weavers Guild. It's kind of disbanded and things because most of the people got jobs and we can no longer meet. But in the beginning, most of the things we did as a group were we all got together to dye. We had dyeing parties. Bring your pot in the color you want it to dye, and you get 8, 9 ladies in there, couple guys, and you have 10, 11 different colors being boiled, and you take clean and dry your yucca, and you all show up to dye. The person who took the dye is the first one to color their yucca, and then everyone else after that you kind of put your bundle of yucca next to the pot in line, so everyone, when they take that out, they say, "Who's next?" And you say, "Mine is right there, so I'm gonna throw them in next." Then that's pretty much all we did. Go out collecting as a group, or yucca or willow, whatever. Get back and start processing. Once in a while, we did work on baskets and things there, but we didn't work on whole group projects. We worked on individual projects, individual projects that were our own thing, but not a group thing. We worked in a group setting, the camaraderie, the laughing, and everything. So that was pretty much the only thing we did as a whole group. But most of the time, I work in solitude and anything unless somebody's coming to visit and they say, "Hey, I just came to watch you work." We're Zunis are more visual learners than academic learners. All of my crafts I learned by watching someone else. So not textbook or anything like that. So when they come to watch, then I know they want to learn.
Dan, anything? Oh, so sorry, Fabian. Sorry.
Okay, just back to your question about learning and watching other people watching you or passing on your artwork and stuff. Here in Zuni, I know with the jewelers, a lot of families, I think I can say most of the families here in Zuni still carry on the designs like Dan, like he said, he learned from his dad and that style of jewelry making and so on. A lot of these families carry on the same designs that their forefathers, their grandmothers and grandfathers started back in the day. And to this day, those families still carry on that style of silversmithing, and they guard their designs and the way they make their jewelry very jealously and to a T, not only to protect themselves, but to protect their designs and their family traits as well. Yeah.
I seen this before where my dad was teaching silversmithing, And he had a number of people behind him watching him. And he was more or less teaching them techniques, but it was something that he thought that, well, this belongs to all of us. And that if you want to copy my style, you're certainly welcome to it. This is the kind of ideology that people in Zuni had when we were really thinking about our whole selves and what kind of talents we have. We can share that because back then we were all living in extended family lifeways where we would actually teach one another, share everything among ourselves, and still expand outward. So when I looked at my dad's work, he taught his nephews, he taught his uncles, he taught so many different people how to do silversmithing. And if they wanted to adapt his own style, they were more than welcome to do it. Again, I think this was still part of that extended family understandings that we all should share. And this was before we still really started doing any copyrights or anything like that. And then it all changed in 1970, in the 1970s, when we shifted from extended family to nuclear families. Those kind of values also came into play, and we became a little bit more protective about our designs, our work, and keeping it like that. And it was no longer being shared like how my dad's generation was like. But I think it has a lot to do with our way of life and what we were doing and what we were evolving to become.
Very, very interesting. One of the things that John Jahate asked, he said, kind of on this topic of working together, working collaboratively or secluded, just another thing, John said, hey, can you maybe ask the panelists about the Zuni Artists Collaborative and Studio Tour, if they're willing to discuss it?
Did you say collaboration?
Yeah, the Zuni Artist Collaborative.
Oh.
I don't think any of our panelists are a part of that organization and group.
Okay.
I don't know the specifics on that and how they operate and what they do. That's a different entity, a different a group of people. The only ones on the artists that are part of it would have been Aldrich and Charlotte Cialtula, but they're not on with us today.
Gotcha. Sorry about that. We have another question, general question about, about the, talking about selling, things and what markets are like just generally for some of our guests here. Is there anyone that wants to talk about those?
The stuff that I make, I usually make like to carry them as merchandise items to different shows, or powwows and whatnot. And my wife Shelly Morningsong Fontenelle, she's a singer-songwriter, recording artist. So we carry a lot of our own videos, and she's also an author. She's recently, within the past 2 years, she wrote her first children's book. So we go to a lot of native art shows, native music festivals, and that's where she makes she does a lot of sewing. She makes ribbon skirts. She makes teddy bears dressed in Indian clothing, and just really cute stuff. And then I do small pouches and old style. She like the style of necklace that I'm wearing, like old style of strung necklaces using different materials, mineral beads and turquoise and whatnot. And so that's how we also make a living, because we're performing artists as well. Travels.
Fabian, don't forget Dancing Elk.
Yeah, that used to be one of our shops, but it's no longer in existence. Thank you, Chris.
The Etsy one.
Oh yeah, Etsy. Shelly's site. We have Etsy. We sell some of our products on Etsy as well, and also our own personal website, which is ShellyMorningsong.com.
Oh, fantastic.
For me, as far as markets and stuff, I do in July, we do demonstrations at the Watchtower in Grand Canyon. So I do take stuff out there to sell. Other market I do is the Santa Fe Indian Free Market. It's held at the same time as the Santa Fe Indian Market. Those are pretty much the only two markets I do. Most of my business is all coming in through people walking in the door to order or people calling. Um, I have Facebook, but I don't use it. I only keep it for Messenger. So a lot of people
You too.
get me on Messenger. I don't like to see what's on Facebook, but it's great to reach out to people. So
Yeah.
that's what I do a lot of my business on. It's just orders. I would say about 75% is all repeat customers that come back to order things from me. But yeah, those are the only two public markets I do. Other than small events and stuff, which I'm invited to, and I never know what those are gonna be, or where they're gonna be. Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. I don't really go to a number of different shops or anything, and I haven't really done too many markets as well either. But the reason why was that I walked into a shop, main shop that I started with, and I don't know if I should say their shop name or anything. I'll avoid doing that. But anyway, I went in there one day and they told me that you need to be producing a lot more. And I said, why? And he said, well, you have just a ton of orders that are coming here and they want your work. And I said, nah, I just said that, nah. I said, no, really, seriously. Then they directed one of their workers to pull down this box and told him to open it. Look in there, Dan. And so I looked in there and it had my name on it, on all these pieces of paper and what they wanted from me. And so I said, yeah, you're not kidding, I guess. But I don't think I can ever fulfill this box full of orders. It's that's just not how I work. I work because I want to spend as much time in it as I can. My way of marketing is, to me, something that I spend a lot of time on, a lot of thought on in making them. And that takes a lot of time. But I try to equate that with the hours I put into a piece of work. And it teaches me to have much more control about pricing. And so that's how I do it. That's how I do it. I think other people do the same thing, but I don't know. Sometimes it's, things are too repetitive or too something else. And so I try to think outside around that and what works for me and how well it works. And so that way, if I get to control that, I have a sense of my own ideas that are coming out constantly and evolving constantly. Fetishes, I do fetishes, yeah, but I also do fetish jewelry. And that's not something that's widely available, but now it is. Now it is, but I still own my own work, and so that's my own signature to it, that. And so I get to at least control everything I do, and so that I can manage this into the future to pass it on to people. Yeah.
I appreciate that so much, Dan. I mean, just talking about, what it takes for you to keep that balance, right? To not get like, to so stressed out, to center what is important to you in the process. It's something that I think about a lot with other things, with work. Fabian, was there something else that you were wanting to say on this topic?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I think we're gonna kind of wrap it up for now. We have like all kinds of thanks. People are saying it's a wonderful film. So everyone who worked on it, all of you, thank you so much. Are there any parting thoughts? Anything anyone wants to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I had a really fun time. This is really good. I really enjoyed this. I think this is a nice new step into asking more questions towards the artists and what our thoughts are about. And I really appreciate explaining anything that comes about and talking about it a lot more.
Yeah, I
Thank
just
you.
want to say thank you again for letting me be part of something so awesome. And it was a pleasure, and had a lot of fun and meeting everyone and talking with everybody. And thank you all so much.
I just want to thank Laura, Kate, Adam, David from Crow Canyon to put this project together and follow it to completion, along with the Zuni artists, Zuni people on this side, and to everyone who joined us. Uh, I'm glad you appreciate it and enjoyed the finished product. This, like I said, 2-3 years in the making, and I'm proud of what was accomplished and finished. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all so much for your time. This was fantastic. Again, all the comments are just rolling in right now saying how much people enjoyed this. And again, thank you so much. So I hope everyone has a really great week, and we will see you again. Remember, not next week, the following week, for our last webinar of the year. All right. Bye, everyone.